Hello, welcome to MTG Studios. I'm Maria. Today we're going to explore some more watercolor techniques and brushwork especially with the artist John Marin. John Marin was an American 20th century artist well known for his oil paintings and watercolors. He actually started out as an architect and did that for 6 years before fully devoting his time to painting. In 1905, he went to Europe, and while there was exposed to artists like Paul Cézanne and some art movements like the Faubes and the Cubists. It really changed his style. It became bold and expressive. In 1914, Marin and his wife traveled to Maine for the first time, where he fell in love with the landscape. They traveled there each summer, and you can find many examples of his work from this period and other periods of his art career in some of the links that I've posted below. Today we'll try to create a landscape painting in the style of John Marin, based on his painting West Point, Maine, painted in 1914. You can find this painting online at the Cleveland Museum of Art. I recommend highly. Go to that website, click on the image, you'll be able to zoom in for some incredible details of this and other works by Marin. This landscape is painted in Marin's signature, bold, expressive style. So if you're ready to challenge yourself with some brushwork and transparent washes, gather your supplies because it's time for art. This is the painting by John Marin called West Point, Maine, that we are going to try to recreate. Doesn't have to be perfect. It will not be perfect, so don't get hung up on every little brush stroke. I know I tend to do that, so fair warning. This is very complex. And again, if you go to the Cleveland Museum of Art's website, you can pull this image up and click on any area of it and really zoom in for some intense detail on this particular painting. So we'll be able to explore in this painting some washiness, some dry brush technique, and lots of color. Lots of color. So at first, what you want to do is you want to prepare your area. I've taped down my paper to a sturdy board. So hopefully you've done that already. You have your sponge, your 2 cups of water, and your paint ready, maybe some paper towel, and some scrap pieces of paper for testing your colors on. If you're right-handed, all of those supplies belong on the right-hand side of your workspace, so you're not dripping over it. And if you're left-handed, then put them on the left-hand side. And pre-wet your paints, only the colors you're going to be using. So I'm going to be using a lot of greens and some purple and some mauve and couple of reds, so I'll get my red ready there, and some yellow. Definitely need some yellow, and a little bit of blue. And so once you have all that ready, some people like to start with the sky. I know I usually do. But John Marin's style is very loose and fluid. He kind of worked his painting all over at once. Not sure where he may have started with this one, but we'll start with the sky. One of the reasons why I like to start with the sky is because it sort of is an easy way into the painting. So what I want to first do is maybe lay down a little bit of my horizon line there, the tree line. I'm going to just sort of put that in loosely. Right along that edge there is what I'm doing. And then I can use a little bit of some brown with a little bit of red, maybe put in that other little bit that we see in there. And anytime it looks like you've got too much pigment down and not enough water, just lift it out, squeeze your brush off on the sponge or your paper towel, and just lift it out. That's all there is to it. Now the fun thing with this tree line, the trees are kind of blue. He's gone in and just put in some straight up and down lines and let some of that bleed a little all across there. And you see how that little scrap of paper, I put a kind of little puddle of blue there. And that's okay. I like to do that sometimes. It's easier than using the lid, I think, sometimes. And then to kind of help that along, I'm going to maybe add a little bit of a line of water there. And maybe a little more of that reddish brown up in there and down through here. And then just let it bleed. Just let it bleed. Let it do its own thing. One of the things that I love about John Marin's style is that it's very quick, very gestural. Some of his marks are very, I like to use the word calligraphic. It's like calligraphy, like he's writing with a calligraphy brush and writing letters on his paper in a very fluid, quick kind of a way. Now our sky has a lot of different colors going on in there. We've got some lavender and some blue and some green. Certainly, I don't know when the last time was I saw a green sky, but I'm going with it. If it worked for Marin, it'll work for me. So I'm going to put a couple of those brooding sky clouds in that sky up there with a little, oops, a little touch of the green, a little touch of the blue, and maybe a little bit over here. And we see how he's got these brush strokes here that just kind of swoop in. So we can do that too. And then this is much darker than his work, so what I do is kind of lift out and then put some of that back in over there. That little bit of pink he's got there, and kind of blend that out a little. And just have fun with it. Maybe pick up some of that pink that's there. Kind of put that over there. Maybe a little bit there. Again, it does not have to look exactly like his. We are using John Marin's painting as a springboard to explore his style. Very different approach to trying to copy something like we did in some of the other lessons. And then when you think you're done, just stop and move on to the next thing. Now we've got this big expanse that I believe is a lake, but it's a pink lake. So I'm going to use some of that mauve that I have again, that nice pink magenta kind of color, and I'm going to throw some of that in there and leave space for those trees that I see. And one of the things too that I've noticed in studying John Marin's paintings is not just the quickness with which he works on his art, but also the way he layers things. He's not afraid to let one piece overlap a wash. Now I'm going to mix a little bit. Actually, I think I'm going to mix this here. I'm going to mix some of this yellow with some green. in this lid. I like to recycle and upcycle things. So my bottle caps, little magnet strips in these metal tins, also recycled, gonna serve as my little palette area for creating some colors. And again, once you mix a color, you can't be sure until you test it out here. Oh, that looks pretty good. I think I want a little bit more brown green in that though. Just a touch. I want it so neon green. There we go. So now I'm going to put in this tree that's up here. It's very loose, looks like a pine tree of some sort. And we have other areas of green, maybe green grass or something going on there. We also have these other areas where the green is very, very dark. So I'm going to kind of blot those in. And the idea here is not so much to get caught up in, oh, I'm painting every single tree in this image here. No. If you do that, you will make yourself crazy. So what we want to do is we want to suggest trees with simple lines. John Marin had his marks that he made. You'll have your own marks as I have mine. We can learn a lot from copying the masters like John Marin and O'Keeffe and Clay. But at some point we might learn their tricks and then discover a whole new way of painting ourselves and create our own marks, our own marking system, our own way of painting, as George O'Keeffe said. You have to find your own way of painting. So what I'm doing here is I'm just sort of exploring the colors. I'm exploring some of the brushwork that we see from John Marin's work. And I'm just kind of letting go and having fun with this. Using lots of color, lots of fluid textured brush marks. Exploring some washy areas and some dry brush areas. Going in here and there and lifting out where I don't want it so dark, maybe. And letting other areas bleed into other areas. Little spot of orange I just spotted there that I kind of like. I'm going to throw that in there. So here we have some washy areas that I'm going to let kind of blend together. And then some more intense color areas. And more more suggested trees. And see how this is overlapping now again with what I did in the very beginning. And the fun thing I like to do is use a variety of brushes. If I can use my smaller brush to kind of redirect that paint just a little bit. With my big brush, sometimes it's a little challenging to get the fine detail, so you do need these other size brushes. Grab some of that blue there and play with that a little. And just kind of experiment, have some fun, get in some dry brush. Where you fill your brush with some paint, tap it off a little bit, and then explore some brush stroke techniques, just like Marin. And see where it leads you. I imagine if I were at this particular landscape, I would be overwhelmed with all of the trees. So that's why you just have to suggest the trees. Can't get caught up in every single little pine needle or branch. Now this is interesting. We've got a little area of red-brown. So I'm going to grab some of that red, mix it with my brown. Test that color out first. Oh yeah, that looks good. I'm going to put little touches where it's still wet here. And kind of flesh out that tree a little bit more. And I can soften some of these edges with just clean water and just grab a little bit of that edge. So it just softens it a little bit more. And now some of these areas are drying, so that's where you might want to try a little more dry brush technique and get some interesting patterns and textures going in there. Could be gravel, it could be more, maybe some dead pine needles here and there. It might be a walkway, or who knows, maybe some flowers. Now I have been saving this part for last. Down below we've got a lot of wonderful purples and pinks that might be flowers or paths. So now I'm going to explore those down there a little bit more with that nice purple that I have. And again, I'm going to use one of those to create this nice little purple in here, but it's not straight purple. It's got a little pink to it. So I'm going to add some of that magenta in there. And again, test it. Maybe a little more of that magenta in with that purple. There we go. And so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to just freeform this and just sort of drag that in there where I want it. Does not have to be exactly like his. I don't have the same amount of space on my paper to do the same thing. I can let it drag and bleed here and there. Maybe create another one over here. And there's another area where there's just that nice pink in there. Put that in there. Maybe a little bit more pink over here and over here. And then I can play around with blurring the edge a little bit, creating a washy edge. And then add some other things that I've noticed in Marin's work that I want to maybe add to my work. There's some more blue in this area here. And maybe a little bit more over there. Maybe balance that out on the other side here. And the trick here is, as always, knowing when to start and knowing when to stop. When you stop is when you feel you've explored it enough and you've had enough fun, because this is kind of fun. It's lots of fun, actually. And just keep working on it until you think that it is done. Well, that was kind of fun. There's so much to be learned when we try to copy the styles of the masters. It can help us to develop our own styles and techniques. So I hope you'll continue working with watercolor and explore some other paintings by John Marin. Check out those links that I've provided in the notes. And until next time, keep on making time for art. If you enjoyed today's lesson, I hope you'll subscribe to my YouTube channel. I post lessons weekly on Tuesdays. And you can also find me on social media on Instagram and Facebook. Until next time, thanks for watching.